Be strong.
Welcome back to another episode of Wealthy Choices with Steve and Tyler, brought to you by the Tax Force.
Yes.
Haven't said that before, but I thought of it the other day.
Love it.
Today we're talking about the Ontario Tourism and Travel Small Business Support Grant. That is a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. You know, typical government, they like to put long titles on stuff.
It's crazy. What do small businesses get with this grant, Steve?
Well, first, I think it's important to know that a couple of months ago, there was something that they called, and let me get this right here, the Ontario, nope, not on that page. Let me get this right here. The Ontario Small Business Support Grant.
Okay. And those two things are different, is what you're saying.
Well, yes, because that one closed on April the 7th. Applications closed for that on April the 7th. The problem with that particular program for a lot of Ontario businesses is that the revenue comparison period was April 2020 versus April 2019. Seasonal businesses, tourism businesses, often aren't open in April. So you had zero versus zero,
right.
Means you don't qualify, right? So they came up with this tourism funded grant, which is much the same as that program.
So it's much more specific to tourism.
It is much more specific to tourism. And one of the qualifying factors is you can't qualify for the tourism grant if you already applied and qualified for the other one.
Right.
The dollar figures are the same. You get between $10,000 and $20,000. The government doesn't really tell you how they decide that. It's just you get a minimum 10 and a maximum 20 based on, well, again, they haven't really told us.
Let's say I have a motel in Tobermory, Ontario,
Yes.
for example.
Yes.
How do I know if I'm eligible for this grant or not?
Well, you really just have to work through the application process. Okay. A few of the highlights of things that, are going to make you not qualify, so it would mean you wouldn't want to bother going through the steps, is, again, if you did apply for and qualify for the Ontario Small Business Support Grant.
So you're not going to get both?
Yeah, that's right. You're not going to get both. You have to have fewer than 99 or fewer employees as of April 30th, 2021. And you have to have had a revenue decline of at least 20%. Now, you get to pick your operating period, as opposed to the other program it was just the month of April. So for this program, you do get to pick your operating period, a 3-month average.
So for example, my motel is open during the summer. I can pick the dates open and closing kind of deal? Or?
Yeah, any 3-month period, any consecutive 3-month period in that program. Yeah, for 3 consecutive months. So it just has to be the same. Whatever's most beneficial to your business, as long as it's the same time period, 2019 and 2020.
Right. Okay.
Right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So a 20% decline on average, minimum in those 3 months. We believe that, the larger the revenue drop, the more the grant you're likely to qualify for. But again, They don't really give us any details on that.
Well, that would make sense that it would work that way, but the
right?
government...
Yes. We don't want to tell you what the metrics are.
That's right.
You have to have operated a tourism business in Ontario. And there's several that qualify, and a few that specifically don't. So some of the reasons that you might not qualify is, again, if you received the Ontario Small Business Support Grant. If you began operating just in 2021, sorry, new businesses don't qualify for this. If you're owned or operated by the government, so the government's not giving themselves money.
Nice of them.
That's right. Or if you're a person holding federal or provincial office, or a provincial employee, as well other businesses specifically that are not eligible, campgrounds, caterers, children's day camps, event planning service, conference centers and convention centers, food and grocery delivery services, museums, galleries, aquariums, zoos, science centers, landmarks, historic sites, botanical gardens, and similar attractions, operators of farmers markets, vendors, roadside stands, outdoor sports and recreation facilities, restaurants and bars, and short-term and long-term rental properties, including those listed on Airbnb websites, except for bed and breakfast, cottage and cabins that report their revenue as a business income and not a rental income. So it does dive down to get in pretty specific there, depending on the way that you operate your business and how you report that income to the government. If you're into renting property,
Right.
you may or may not qualify depending on how that income is reported there.
So if you had an extra cottage, for example, and you
Yeah.
rented it out in the summer, you
Yeah.
might not be.
Most
that
often,
what-
most often you report that on a rental statement.
Right.
But again, back to the motel as an example, while they're renting space in a motel, that's actually reported on a business statement, so the motel would qualify.
Awesome.
Right? So somebody that maybe had a number of rental cottages might report it as business income rather than as rental income. And there's a deep rabbit hole we could dive down there as
Sure,
to
I'm
why
sure there
or
is.
why not. You would report those on different kinds of forms, but for this program, if it's on a rental form, you don't qualify.
Okay.
Right?
It's interesting. I'm in my head. I think of tourism and I think motels, hotels.
Yeah.
There's other things that go into that, and I'm just looking at the list: amusement parks and water parks. It's not something in my head that I thought of, but that's on the list of people who do qualify for the list.
Yeah.
Fireworks display services, hotels, motels, as we talked about, hunting and fishing camps, indoor attractions intended primarily for tourists, for example, haunted houses, fun houses, or mazes, mobile food trucks.
They have indoor mazes?
I guess so.
That's
well,
cool.
Well, think of the mirror mazes at the fairs, right?
Oh, yeah. That's
And
cool.
you hit your face multiple times.
We should build one of those.
We should. It's the next attraction in Topomori,
There you go.
Ontario. Sorry, where were we? Mobile food services like chip wagons, food trucks, ice cream trucks.
So that's interesting because restaurants don't qualify, caterers don't qualify, and restaurants don't qualify.
But if you have a mobile food service,
But if you have a
that is interesting,
right, mobile food services, chip wagons, food trucks, ice cream trucks.
Maybe there's different grants for restaurants all
I
together.
think that they've looked after restaurants under
Yeah.
different things, but for this specific grant, mobile food operations do qualify. Probably even if you're stationary with that, like you don't necessarily have to move your truck around.
Yeah.
If you've got one spot for the summer, but you would qualify because you're a mobile operation.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that is pretty much the list. I mean, we could put a link. We'll put a link right to the page
Absolutely.
On the video, but that's pretty much the list of people who get it, who
People
qualify
do
for it, and
qualify.
people who don't
Yeah,
qualify
yeah.
for
So if you
it.
don't fall into one of those categories, so best if you're wondering, right?
Right.
Go to the link, have a look at it. You've got to figure out how you fit into one of those business categories. As long as you do, I would apply for the grant.
Information you'll need to know to apply.
There we go.
Fantastic. You will need your business and banking information to apply, including general business information. For example, your CRA business number.
So that's your GST number.
Okay.
Right? Like
Yep.
your GST, HST number, that's what that is. Your bank information's your bank account number.
Right. Yeah.
Pretty
Bank
straightforward
account
stuff. Yep.
Information, banking institute, yeah, all that stuff. Other required details, Steve.
Revenue figures. So, of course, you got to report your revenue for the period 2019 versus 2020. The number of employees, because they want to know you have 99 or
Sure.
less.
Yep.
So you have a list of affiliated companies, and then electronic copies. So you just got to scan or take a picture of your federal and municipal licenses or permits required to operate. So many businesses have, a municipal permit. There's a lot of businesses that wouldn't need anything for that as well. There's no licenses that are required for them to operate. So,
Interesting.
yeah. So
That's another episode of Wealthy Choices with Steve and Tyler.
thanks for watching.
Strong.